You may want to watch the two videos that are hopefully linked to the top right corner of this video right now. Before you start this one, we're going to put those two ideas together along with solving inequalities. Okay, for all 5 of these examples, we are going to solve the inequality, then plot them on a number line and give our answer in interval notation. So when you're solving an inequality, you can treat the inequality sign like an equal sign if you're adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing by a positive number. The only thing that gets a little wonky here is if you multiply or divide by a negative number, you have to flip your inequality sign. Let's do some examples. 8x plus 1 is greater than 5x minus 5. So we're going to solve this like normal. That means get all of your x's to one side of the equal sign and then solve for x. I'm going to subtract my 5x over because I don't like negative numbers. And then now solve for x. Subtract your 1 to the other side and divide by 3. This is my answer. I have solved the inequality. Now let's plot on a number line and give our answer in interval notation. So number lines go from negative numbers to positive numbers, and the only number we care about here is -2. Because x is written before the inequality sign, this arrow is pointing in the correct direction, so that tells me to shade to the right. And this is just a greater than sign, so I'm going to use an open circle. So this is my plot. Done. Now write your answer in interval notation. We just want to give the interval that's shaded in here. So from -2 all the way to infinity is shaded in. Use parentheses at -2 because it's an open circle, or this was just a greater than symbol. And we always use parentheses at infinity. Similarly, let's solve this inequality. So add your 3 over to the other side and divide by 2. You can either give me the decimal answer or you can give me the fraction. But this is our answer. All right, now let's plot it on a number line. Number lines go from negative infinity to positive infinity, and the only number we care about is this 3.5 or 7/2. Because x is written before my inequality sign, that means my inequality sign is pointing in the correct direction, so I need to shade to the left. And there's not a line underneath this, so I need an open circle. All right, now write your answer in interval notation. So what part is shaded on this number line? From negative infinity to 3.5. You always go from left to right. Use parentheses at infinity always, and we're going to use parentheses at 3.5 because there was an open circle. There was not a line here. Before we do this next example, let me remind you, if you divide by a negative, you have to flip the inequality sign. That should be, hopefully, the only thing that trips you up here. So let's solve this. Subtract your 5 over to the other side. And now divide by -4, which means my inequality sign flips. And we're done. Plot it. X comes before the inequality, so that means it is correctly pointing to the right to shade in the right. And finally, we have an example of an or equal to, which means we have a closed in dot because this line right here. Interval notation, use a bracket at -2 because it is a closed dot, or it says or equal to, and it goes to infinity, and infinity is always parentheses. All right, let's do 2 more that are slightly different just because it's got parentheses and the last one has fractions. So for the parentheses, it's not any different from what we do when we do just normal linear equations that have parentheses. We need to distribute. Oh. And now solve for u. The 2u and 7u are both on the same side of the inequality, so I can combine like terms, add them together. And now add my 6 over to the other side and divide by 9. I don't like my numbers coming first, so I'm going to rewrite this as u is less than or equal to 4. Mirror image it. This is acceptable as your final answer, but I personally prefer to write it this way. Mirror image it, notice the small part of the v is pointing towards the u both times. 4 greater than or equal to u is the same thing as u less than or equal to 4. So it's the same exact thing. We're just rewording it. Written this second way helps me plot on a number line better, because now U comes before the inequality sign, which means I need to shade to the left. If you used this one and tried to shade to the right, because that's where the arrow is pointing, that doesn't work. Remember, your variable, your letter has to come first. And we'll use a closed-in dot at 4 because this is an or equal to problem. It's got that line there. Ooh, that should be a bracket. Make sure you're clear about brackets versus parentheses. All right, last example is a fractional example. We're going to treat it the same way we did when we did linear equations with fractions. You could solve this way and have fractions the whole time. That's fine. If you like fractions, go for it. I personally don't like fractions. So I am going to multiply every single piece there by any denominator I have. You can do it in multiple steps or all at once. Luckily, we only have one denominator here. So I just have to multiply everything by a 7. 7 over 1 technically is what you're doing, which doesn't really matter except in that first fraction. Ooh. So here my 7's cancel, and this is a 5v over 1. Negative 7 times 6 is negative 42, or 7 times negative 6 is negative 42, and 7 times negative 4 is negative 28. Now that's a little weird. Anyhow, multiply each piece by 7. The denominator here will cancel out, so you're left with just the numerator, and then both of these pieces were multiplied by 7. Now, yeah, they're bigger numbers, but to me that's prettier than dealing with fractions. So let's solve for v. Add your 42 over to the other side. Is that really only 14? Wow. And then divide by 5. You can give me the decimal, which I think is 2.8 if I remember correctly, or you can give me the fraction. I don't really care. It's either way. It's your call. Don't forget to plot your answer on a number line. V comes before the inequality sign, so I'm going to shade to the left with an open circle. And to write interval notation, use parentheses because this was an open circle.